Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we've got some news on the foreign policy front. Apparently, Donald Trump is acquiescing to the Lindsey Graham element in the Senate, and he is now saying he's going to, instead of 50 days, he's going to do 12 days. And boy, Russia's really going to get it then. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and in case you haven't heard the latest, so Donald Trump is now saying that 50 days. We're gonna get rid of that 50-day time limit, whatever that he arbitrarily set on the Russia, on Putin. Boy, he's going to show Putin his junior, his inferior guy, who he has the authority to set deadlines and make demands of. We're the mighty U.S. empire, and he's the emperor. So doggone it, I gave you 50 days, son. Doesn't it sound like something that, son, you better have the grass cut by 4 p.m. today. I told you to cut that grass all week, and I'm sick and tired of messing with you. You got 3 hours to cut the grass. That's kind of the position that he's taken. And my opinion on that is he's not talking to Vladimir Putin. That's the things you got to understand about the current situation with the Trump administration. And what I'm coming to believe is the situation with presidents, period, in the United States, is that they're never really talking to the ostensible target outside of the country, that they're always talking to the American people to propagandize the American people into believing something that is completely false and supporting a narrative that's completely false. Let's take a look at something important that I think is directly related, and that is the latest from Mr. Sergey Lavrov. Sergey Lavrov has said, let's take a look. Russia alone against entire West for the first time in history. Russia is fighting the West alone for the first time in history and must rely solely on its own strength. We'll talk about that. Well, while we've got Sergey Lavrov, let's talk about, this is an important article. This is a very, very important article. So let's break it down bit by bit. It's not a long article, it'll only take a few minutes. So when Sergey Lavrov says that he goes, and later on he says okay, let's go. Speaking at the Territory of Meanings Forum on Monday, Lavrov highlighted the unprecedented geopolitical landscape Russia found itself in following the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022. The main task is to defeat the enemy. This is Sergey Lavrov. For the first time in history, Russia is fighting alone against the entire West. In World War I and World War II, we had allies. Now we have no allies on the battlefield. So we must rely on ourselves and not allow any weakness, he said. Lavrov stressed that Russia will not back down from its core security demands, which led to the Ukraine conflict. We insist on what is our legitimate demand: no dragging Ukraine into NATO, no NATO expansion at all. It has already expanded right up to our borders, contrary to all promises and documents that were adopted, he said, adding that a settlement of the conflict should always also recognize the new territorial reality on the ground. I think an important part of that statement is he says we have no allies on the battlefield, because the reality of it is this: Russia has a lot of allies around the world and partners. I don't know if you want to use the word allies or partners. Let's start here. In fact, North Korea has made it clear, and North Korea being a country that doesn't like imperialism, that you got to give them credit. They've stood their ground against the West, and they've never knuckled 1 inch against the West, ever, ever, ever. And I don't know how well this will be accepted. They were smart enough to realize that if they didn't have nuclear weapons, that they would surely be attacked by the U.S. empire. They got nuclear weapons. Now they ain't getting attacked by the U.S. empire. That's just reality. But North Korea is, in fact, a military and strategic ally with Russia right now, not just a partner. They have a strategic military alliance. So I think what Sergey Lavrov is really saying here is not we're all alone and there's nobody but us. I think they recognize that there are a lot of countries and leaders and groups around the world that support the Russians and that are continuing to support Russia economically. And I think mainly because because such as China, I think, and Iran, because they understand that they have a common enemy and a common oppressor, a common antagonist. But I also think there are other countries such as India and even the EU who are, though they won't admit it, are continuing to support Russia by buying Russian resources, oil and gas, because they have no choice. In the case of the EU, they have no alternative supply. And in the case of India, because it benefits them. And it's WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Why? The bottom line is Russia is still able to have partnerships and alliances economically that help them. Additionally, Russia is an important cog in the international industrial and food supply line for the world. They supply a lot of natural resources outside of just carbon fuels that other countries need to survive. They need to eat, they need to make money, they need to keep their factories going, whatever. So Russia is important. And so Russia survives on the international scale, on an international economic scale, because they can benefit other countries and because other countries, such as China, who has recently said, we can't let Russia fall. And I don't think that was as much a indictment on Russia's military capabilities. I don't think China was saying, no, we can't let Russia fall because Russia's in deep trouble. I think it was meant to say, look, if you guys are thinking about attacking Russia, if you guys are thinking about taking Russia out and taking Russia down, we're going to, if Russia gets in dire straits, we're going to be there for them because we know you're coming for us next. Right now, Russia's handling its own business and it appears it'll be able to. But don't think that you're going to push Russia to the brink and that we ain't going to be there. China made that clear. In fact, I'm wondering if in early September, when Russia and China meet, whether or not they're going to announce a military alliance. I, for one, and there are people who may disagree with me, and I know this is not in a normal alliance with Chinese foreign policy, because China doesn't do, quote, alliances. They don't do allies. They do partners, right? They make it clear. They do partners, not allies. But as the U.S. empire gets more unhinged and threatens people more, they may need to make adjustments. But the bottom line is Russia is saying we're by ourselves on the battlefield. You notice he gave you that caveat, that stipulation, because I think that everyone in the world understands, a lot of people in the world, not Americans, because Americans are totally brainwashed, that this is a full spectrum dominance war on Russia, but it's not just on Russia. That this is a full spectrum dominance war on modernity. And by modernity, what I mean is in the modern world, as the world changes, as power dynamics organically rearrange themselves, the United States is attempting to stop that change. It's attempting to say, oh my gosh, the world is changing. Some people are rising, some people are falling. Just so happens we're falling. We must stop that change. And you might as well try to stop the tide from coming in and going out, stop the moon from rising, stop the birds from flying, and stop the fish from swimming. Birds gotta fly, fish gotta fry, as they say, right? As George Jefferson once said. But the bottom line is, it is a world war, a war on modernity, a war on a changing world in which the United States is not the hegemon, no longer, maybe never was, however you want to put it. But I think that for Russia specifically, it is an existential war against them as part of that war. For instance, if you say to me, well, Garland and 5 guys are sitting in a room, and you say, I'm going to kill 5 guys, and I'm going to start with Garland. Yes, I understand you're trying to kill all 5 people in the room. But to me, if you say, we're going to kill Garland first, but if you can't kill Garland, it's going to be hard to kill the other 5. To me, whether the other 5 help, don't help, whatever they do, I got to fight to the death because you're trying to kill me. And If the other 4 guys survive, what good is that going to do me? But from the perspective of the other 4 guys, if I don't survive, they're next, and they understand it. So Russia's got a lot of support. And now, so let's finish this. Lavrov also likened the West's behavior to that of childhood bullies. When you're a kid messing around with other boys in the yard, sometimes a big kid, 3 or 4 years older, shows up and starts chasing the little ones. He said that's roughly what the West is doing to everyone else right now. Moscow stated on a number of occasions that NATO expansion and Ukraine's aspirations to join the U.S.-led military bloc were among the key reasons for the conflict. So let's continue on with that. Okay. So what we're looking at is Russia being in a position where they have to protect themselves since there's a war against them, a full spectrum attack on them, diplomatic, economic, military, you name it, right? They have to protect themselves basically through all that spectrum of all spectrums of attack. And I think that they've got help, obviously, and that help is growing and that help is building. And ironically, paradoxically, dare I say, the U.S.'s bungling is helping Russia. The U.S.'s hapless bungling, the U.S.'s inability to understand the dynamics that they're facing is of a great benefit to Russia. Because the U.S. is picking fights everywhere, which weakens they're weakening themselves. I would argue that one of the things that has significantly weakened the U.S. is its engagement with both the Houthis in Yemen and with Iran. Why? Not just from the perspective of the world understanding that the U.S.'s military capabilities are limited in a number of ways, limited in that their technological advancements have been outpaced by others, but limited in their industrial capabilities have diminished to a point where they can't sustain a military conflict. Everybody's looking at the U.S. and saying, there's one thing we understand right now. Your air defense systems are crap. They are not good. They're not consistent. And what's even worse is you don't have the industrial capability to build the number of air defense missiles or anything else that you would need for a sustained conflict. The United States is a one-punch Johnny. Right? That was what Israel did. One punch Johnny. I'm going to come in and throw that big haymaker. But if that haymaker don't land, I got to run. I got to get up out of there. Because if that haymaker don't land and that guy starts throwing flurries, I can't protect myself from continuous punches and flurries, right? And that's what a little guy does. You know, if you ever see a fight of the big guy, if you ever see these big, strong people and they want to use their muscle, they want to get in there. A lot of times they want to lead, if they're right-handed, they want to lead with that left so they can set you up, and get the big power haymaker, right? That's what they want to do, set you up and hit you with the big thing. And if you don't let them set you up or you stay away from that big thing that they have, you're going to have success against them. People are looking at the U.S. and realizing, number one, they don't have a haymaker at all anymore. They don't have a big thing. They don't have a big punch. They're very weak. They're every part of the U.S.'s military capabilities, technologically, industrially, those are the two big ones, have crumbled, have fallen apart, have been hollowed out by neoliberalism. And in engaging with the Houthis, they fired a lot of missiles and people got to look at them and understand the technology and see its weaknesses and see that it didn't work that well. Number two, engaged with Iran. And when they did that, what happened? Tons and tons of missiles came in and they had to tap out. And people realized, these people, you get in a fight with them, all you got to do is throw a flurry, right? All you got to do is throw a lot of punches. A smaller guy, a big guy wants to hit you with the big punch. A smaller guy, quick, he wants to use his speed, his agility, his ability to outlast you. He's going to come in, he's going to throw flurries. He's going to move this way, that way. He's going to use his speed. He's all over the place. He's hitting you here. He's hitting you there. He's moving. He's keeping you all over the place. He's like a cat, right? He's not trying to grab you, squeeze you. Boom, 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 boom. He's all over the place, missing. He's all over the place, hit, right? And people have realized the United States doesn't have an air defense, so they can try to throw a big tomahawk at you, which is slow. throw some big missiles at you, which they aren't all that fast. They're not hypersonic. And you throw a lot of flurries at them, throw a lot of drones and missiles and some duds and some dummy missiles, and you just overwhelm them with a flurry of missiles and that they can be defeated. That's what the world is learning. So in going after Russia, in going after Iran, going after the Houthis at the same time, they have both revealed their weaknesses and made their weaknesses more easily exploitable because they've used so much of their inventory. Everybody realizes they're running out of their industrial capacity and their inventory and their industrial capacity to replace that inventory. Now, that being said, let's get back to the Ukraine and the 12-day thing. What happened was Donald Trump, as I've said, wasn't talking to the Russians. He was talking to the neocons. I'm going to give the Russians 50 days. What was he doing? He wasn't giving the Russians 50 days. He was giving himself 50 days, right? He was giving somebody said, Garland, are you kidding me? Russia with nukes and submarines will kill Washington. Well, if Russia and Washington go, we'll all be dead. So that won't really matter. I think Russia, because Washington would probably lose a war quickly. We are so technologically behind. I mean, for God's sake, sometimes it seems like when I look at the U.S. technology that we got wooden ships and catapults, for God's sake, in comparison to hypersonic missiles and S-400s and things like that. It's pathetic. We can't stop the Houthis. But at any rate, let me get back to it. But I did want to answer that. That was a good question. That was a good comment there. But at any rate, so Trump said, 50 days. He was buying time internally. He was buying time with the neocons who are pressure. The pressure is on Trump. Trump's in deep and serious trouble. His presidency is unraveling. Because he's in a fight with the Russians. Maybe he didn't completely start it. Maybe he didn't completely want it, but he contributed to it and he's in it. And he don't know how to get out of it because there ain't no way out of it. That's the truth. Trump's trying to find a way out in the same way, and you probably heard me say this, when you jump off a cliff. Two guys jump off a cliff and they're in the air. And while they're in the air, one guy looks at the other and says, "You idiot, you talked me into jumping off the cliff. I knew I shouldn't have listened to you." And the other guy's like, "Yeah, but you drove me to the cliff, so you contributed to it. And you said, okay, are we going to do this? I don't really want, so you contribute." Now they're in the air discussing it. Well, what are we going to do about it? I got bad news for those two guys. They can discuss it. They can come up with a plan. They've jumped off the cliff and they're in the air. They are in the air. And the way gravity works, when you jump off a cliff, you ain't never going to go up. You look below and there's the sea and there's boulders and rocks, and they're going to splat on the boulders and rocks. When you're in the air, it's too late for a plan. There is no plan. There's no plan. You're in the air. Some decisions that we make in life, once you make that decision, that's it. There ain't no way to come back. The United States made a decision. And the decision was, we're going to try to maintain hegemony, which I would argue we never really had, but whatever, this illusion that we had world hegemony, we're going to hold on to it. And we're going to go after China. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to take out Russia first, and we're going to do this and that. And then Russia's going to fall. And we did this and that. And Russia didn't fall. We're in the air now. Because the plan was Russia was going to fall. And now what happens? Now we're in the air, jumped off the cliff, trying to come up with a new plan. That's where we are. That's where we've been ever since they put the sanctions on Russia after the special military operation started. Ever since they put the sanctions on Russia, and the sanction didn't work, there was no plan. So here we are. So Trump comes up with the 50 days to get himself some time. To give himself some time. He comes up with the 50 days to say, what the hell am I going to do? The Ukraine's getting the hell beat out of them. I'm getting the hell beat out of me by the neocons every day. They're coming saying, we got to do more. We got to go after Putin. We got to send more weapons. Excuse me. We got to do whatever. I'm talking to the military saying, can we send more weapons? I say, ain't got much to send. I don't know what the hell we're going to, everything's in Israel. Run out everything, for God's sake. So Trump's backed in a corner, painted into a corner. He's in a 3-card hole, and he says, okay, 50 days. He gives himself 50 days. And then he's like, oh, my God, thank God I got 50 days. Well, the heat's coming. And might I add, Ukraine's coming unraveled. And it's not just coming unraveled militarily, but it's coming unraveled, I would argue, because of the military situation. That's a big part of it. They're getting pounded. They're getting beaten into submission. The Russians have pressured them nonstop. And now that they're starting to weaken, what are the Russians doing? The more the Ukraine military weakens, the more pressure Russia's going to dial up. As they get weaker, you dial up more. They get weaker, you dial up more pressure. Every time they drop down a little bit, you hit them a little bit harder and keep hitting them and hitting them and hitting them. Every time they start to run out of soldiers in this area, you pressure that area, but you pressure now that you see some weakness, you put pressure, you lean on them, put pressure everywhere. And that's what takes people down. I've told people, I played basketball in high school and basketball at a community college level in Arundel Community College. And then, that was always my passion. That was always the sport I loved, right? I like ping pong too and other things, but that was the one. It was good exercise and I'm running up and down with friends and it was just a great time, right? But one thing people are like, yeah, all that running makes you tired. And I always said, if you understand the game of basketball, it's not running that will really tire you out. Once you're in shape, you can run. It's like soccer. I played soccer in high school too. You play soccer. Once you get to running, man, you can do. Once you get in soccer shape, football shape, whatever you want to call it, you can run forever. You just run. Your feet just go like this, and you don't even know you're running. You're here and you're there and you're all over the place. Same thing with basketball. 5 full court, 6 full court games, like it ain't. Yeah, but tell you what'll wear you down. I tell you what will wear you down and quickly. If you're under the basket and some big guy's leaning against you and he's trying to push you out and you got to hold him up and push back and he pushes you out of the way and you got to go around and you're trying to get position and he's trying to get position and some big guy is just leaning on you. He's 200, God knows how many pounds, 193, 4, right? His big sucker's 240 and he's just leaning on you. And you're holding him up and he's trying to push out and it's not the running that tires you out. It's that weight of some 240-pound bastard just leaning on poor little 193-pound. Oh, God, and I just can't let him do it because he's going to get the rebound and score. So I got to keep struggling with this guy, right? That weight constantly leaning on you will wear you down quick. You can run for 2 hours, but if some guy leans on you after about 20 minutes, you are sucking wind, right? Here's my point. On the battlefield, that's the key to the Russian style of fighting, and that is to keep the pressure on, to just lean on you and just keep the pressure. You're expending ammo, you're fighting, you're pushing, you're fighting back. And then at some point, they see you getting tired. The old legs are starting to wobble and the knees are starting to get weak. And what do? They lean on you heavier. And every time they see you're a little weaker, they lean heavier and they just lean. Just like what's the Alexander McCourt calls it, that lava flow. And at some point, just like lava, it breaks through. And once it breaks through the dam, it's all over. It engulfs everything, right? And you got to tap out. I played basketball where some big guy leans on, you play 5 games up and down the court. Some guy leans on you after about the second game. You're like, all right, Garland, you're playing the next game. I think I'm going to hit the showers and go get myself something to eat and take a nap. I beat 2 games because a big guy leaned on me. That constant weight. You know what? When I was in 9th grade, 1 year, I wrestled. And I'm going to tell you something. If anybody's ever been in wrestling, that's something that'll get you in shape. I only did it 1 year in junior high. Those constant, for whatever, 3-minute rounds, some guy's pulling and leaning and he's pulling your leg, he's laying on your shoulder, he's twisting the whole body. Dude, I'd rather run up and down for an hour on a soccer field, because at the same time I played on a soccer team that year. A couple of years I played on soccer, but I'd rather run 10 games, all day on soccer than that 3-minute round of wrestling, because this guy's leaning on you nonstop. And when you're done wrestling, all you can do is go and take a shower and go to sleep. You're finished, right? Here's my point. That is what Russia does on the battlefield. They put the weight on you and they don't take it off. They don't give you any respite. They don't give you any time to rest, any time to sleep, any time to regroup. They keep coming. And when they see you get weaker, they lean on you heavier and heavier. So what's happening now is That weight is wearing the Ukrainian troops down. And they know it, and everybody in Kiev knows it, and a lot of people here know it. And so what's happening is the weight of the Russian military is affecting the political sphere. And of course, the, what would you call it? Not just the political sphere, but the political sphere amongst the people too. And you're seeing now a level of desperation in Kiev because they can see that the end is near. You're seeing a level of desperation in Washington because what we're seeing with these, the cardboard revolution, a bunch of people with their signs written on cardboard, right? So it's not a color revolution anymore. It's actually wood, the cellulose revolution. I don't know, whatever. Maybe the cardboard could be made by the Koch brothers. Maybe if they make cardboard and those kind of products, maybe it's the Koch brothers revolution. What do you think? I'd like to know where that cardboard was made. But whatever the case may be, that's some kind of, I think, political battle over here, right? The MI6, Zelensky's MI6 creation. And the U.S. doesn't really like the MI6 creation. I think they want their own thing in there. And I think so some of what we're seeing there is some internal fighting between European neocons and warmongers and intelligence and maybe certain factions in America that want something different. So that's the fight that we're seeing. And it manifests itself as a so-called cardboard revolution. It's not at all about Ukraine, because this whole thing's not about Ukraine, other than using Ukraine as a weapon against Russia, an expendable asset against Russia. So the Ukrainian political situation is crumbling. It's falling apart directly, which is directly consequential from the military situation falling apart. And everybody can see the writing on the wall. So this whole 50 to 12 days thing, the 50-day thing was Trump buying time because the neocons are on his ass. Said we gotta send ATACMs, whatever. We gotta send Tomahawks. We gotta up the ante. We gotta go further. We've got to, they only want to push this thing further, right? Because to them it's all or nothing. To them, if this is lost, this was their whole thing. We're going to show the world how tough we are by taking down Russia, and they've got to extend this thing, and they don't know what else to do because it's lost. And they can't admit that it's lost. So they don't know what else to do. And so basically now they've pushed Trump further, and it has become 50 days isn't long enough. Putin's not going to do anything. They push this. It is Putin. It is, not Russia. It is not the interest of Russia. It is not recognizing that Russia has security concerns and has legitimacy as a country so that they have a right to security concerns. Nope. Russia needs to stop fighting. You're just going to pretend like it's fighting. There's two people fighting, not that there's a very, very significant issue at hand here. And the issue is whether or not the United States is superior to Russia, and whether or not Russia's really willing to accept an inferior status. Well, we already know that the answer is no. So what the US really, and the neocons really are fighting to maintain a superior status, again, that they've already lost. So they really want to fight, at least hold on to the image of superiority, the image of hegemony, therefore the language. I gave Russia 50 days. I gave my son 3 hours to cut the lawn. Well, they're not doing anything. So therefore, I'm going to shorten that to 10 days. In other words, I have the right let me say, I have a right to tell Russia what to do, and they better darn listen. Let's look at this. Here's an example. Trump says he's shortening the 50-day deadline to Russia for Russia to end the war, right? In other words, I'm shortening it. Russia better end the war or I will punish them. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You can do that, but that doesn't mean Russia's going to listen. Hey, I'm telling you right now, that rooster better not crow tomorrow, and the sun better not come up. You might as well say that, because they ain't listening either. President Trump said Monday he's giving Russian President Vladimir Putin 10 to 12 days to stop the killing in Ukraine. I wonder who's giving us time to stop the killing in Gaza. So the killing must stop in Ukraine. But when they ask him about Gaza, Hamas is stealing the food, something like that. No issue about the killing. See, his argument is illegitimate, and it's proven by what they're doing. Hey, you better stop the killing in Ukraine. Hey, what about the genocide in Gaza? Oh, nah, that's not important now. Let's go. The killing is in Ukraine. It must stop. Really? And who started it again? And then they go, Russia fired an overnight barrage of more than 300 drones, 4 cruise missiles, and 3 ballistic missiles. Yeah, I bet it's more than that. The Ukrainian Air Force said, oh, well, we can trust it then. You ever notice this? We can trust it. It came from the Ukrainian Air Force. Have they ever lied to us? But wait a minute. I thought Russia ran out of missiles like 2 months into the war. Trump had said on July 14 he would implement severe tariffs on Russia unless a peace deal is reached by early September. Well, what good does that do on Russia? Because we buy like nothing from Russia virtually, except like a lot of uranium for our nuclear power plants. But it looks like that may stop. Fine. Well, Monday, Trump said he'd now give Putin 10 to 12 days, meaning he wants beef efforts to make progress by August 7th through 9th. Well, okay, so what? The plan includes possible sanctions and secondary tariffs targeting Russia's trading partners. The formal announcement will come later Monday or Tuesday. No reason in waiting, Trump said. We just don't see any progress made. Putin has got to make a deal. Too many people are dying in Gaza, perhaps? Oh, no, that's right. I guess they're not people to Trump. Possible sanctions. They put 20,000 sanctions on Russia. Yeah, well, we're going to put another one on them. 20,001. That's the one. That's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Like Russia really cares. There was no immediate response from Russia. Oh, I'm sure there was. I'm sure they're like, yeah, okay. Maintain course and speed, guys. He reported his criticism of Putin. You notice something, and this is the big fallacy of U.S. foreign policy and U.S. policy, period. It's always about people. It's Putin. What about the Russians? Oh, no, Putin. There's just a person. There's no other Russians. Forget the other 150 million Russians. Just one guy, Putin. That's it. That's the only person we need to worry about. He's the one. He's a dictator, and everybody listens to him, and nobody can do anything that he doesn't want. So it's only about Putin. And I'd say that's not the way to do it. He added, I'm disappointed in President Putin. Well, I'm sure he's crying himself to sleep all day, every day. Asked at a news conference about a potential meeting with the Russian leader, Trump said, I'm not so interested in talking anymore. But here's what kills me. Trump said, I want to meet with the Russians. And President Putin's people said, nah, we're not ready for that. So Trump says, I'm not interested in talking to a guy that said he's not really going to talk to you yet. Still, he voiced some reluctance about imposing penalties on the Kremlin, saying that he loves the Russian people. I don't want to do that to Russia. But he noted how many Russians, along with Putin, are dying, along with Ukrainians, are dying in the war. Ukraine has urged Western countries to take a tougher line with Putin. Andrei Yermak, the head of Ukraine's presidential office, thanked Trump for shortening the deadline. Okay. So, bottom line, what we're looking at is Donald Trump flexing for the American people. He wants to show that he's tough. He's flexing for the neocons. Hey, look at me. I'm a tough guy. I can be tough with Putin. Please get off my back. I think another part of it is he's got to do something to distract from the Epstein catastrophe. He's involved. It's a catastrophe. LOL, Garland got it right. U.S. is more of a dictatorship than Russia or Iran. President still has little to say. It's a dictatorship, but you just don't get to know who the dictators are. It's the ruling elite. It ain't Trump, that's for sure. So you're right about that. Somebody says Trump is not tough. He's weak. Oh, he's a very weak president. It's obvious right now that Trump is a very, very weak president. And he is weak and confused. He doesn't know what to do because there's nowhere he can turn. There's nothing he can do. Let me say this. Everything that he does now is reacting, that he is doing now is reacting to the people, to the piranha and the pit of vipers that are around him, biting at his ankle. They're just biting at his ankles constantly, and he's trying to keep them off his ankles. It's like a guy getting with shorts on, get bit by mosquitoes. He's just slapping at those mosquitoes, but no matter how much he slaps, they're going to keep biting. And someone else says Trump's like Biden is a demented old man. I do believe in watching Trump for the first 4 years and seeing how sharp he was. I disagree with his policy, sure, fair enough. But in listening to him and watching him, Trump was sharp. He was quick. He was sharp. He thought quick. But I do believe now that I'm seeing a marked deterioration in his cognitive abilities. I'm not saying that he has dementia per se. Just because you have a deterioration in your cognitive abilities does not mean you have dementia. As an example, my cognitive abilities are not what they were when I was 25 years old. Man, you talk about quick thinking. Woo! And the speller, it was a great speller. That's something I could do because I read all the time. So I guess, if you read constantly, it'll make you much better at spelling because you constantly see the words, right? I love to read. I've always loved to read. Man, I mean, I never even thought about spelling. Every word, boom. If you named it, I could spell it. But right, that was when I was 25. Now I forget how to spell my name half the time. Hey, what's your name? What's that thing? It's got flowers on it and Christmas on the Garland. That's it. No. Yes, I have cognitive deterioration. There ain't no question about that. But that doesn't mean I have dementia. That means I ain't fast as I was 25 years ago. Maybe not fast as I was 25 minutes ago. But my point is not me deteriorating. It's Trump. Yeah, somebody else says Trump doesn't read. Yes. The point is there's a level of deterioration, and Trump came into dare I say, a Lincolnesque moment, right? When Abe Lincoln came in, and I'd love to study Abe Lincoln. What an interesting president, interesting guy. But my point is that when Lincoln came in, he had a tough situation, right? His party, the Republican party had just been formed. The Whigs, which I think he was a Whig, that had fallen apart, but had deteriorated. So you had what's left over of the Whigs. You had the Know Nothing Party, right? Then you had the abolitionists. They were really pissed and angry about slavery. You had all of these groups. You had some that were saying we got to stop slavery, and there were some that were saying, well, we don't like slavery, but we don't want to screw up the country, right? You had people saying you got to make a deal with the South. No, you got to fight with the South. He had a very, very weak, loose, fragile coalition. The genius, the true genius of Abraham Lincoln was the ability to maintain the integrity of that fragile political coalition. All political parties are coalitions. Look at the Republican Party, they got various groups. And those various groups have various wants and needs and agendas, right? And a truly skilled politician is able to hold together his party / coalition / group. And what's interesting about Trump is he came in with a coalition that was Republicans, but he also had people who were anti-war, independents, some anti-war lefties, some anti-war, just various groups. There was progressives I know that voted for Trump. There was black folks I knew that wasn't even in no way really political, but voted for Trump. And they were like, economically, this situation is terrible. I'm sick of this. So I'll try something different. So he had a unique coalition. And now that coalition has awakened to the reality that he was lying the whole time for two reasons. Number one, he didn't have any intention of keeping his words on about a number of things. He just said what he needed to say to get elected. And number two, if he had his intention of keeping his word about some of these things, he doesn't have the authority to do that. If he wanted to release the Epstein list, which he doesn't, he does not have the authority to do it. He couldn't do it if he wanted to, and I don't think he wants to, because he's a member of the class, who were involved in the Epstein behavior. So my point is, the coalition that he had is fracturing. That 6 months into Donald Trump's 6-7 months, whatever, into his presidency, he's a lame duck, and he's lost. His coalition is fractured, some over Gaza, some over Ukraine and his the Iranian actions, his foreign policy, pro-war neocon foreign policy, some over the whole pedophilia issue and Ukraine, and his lies that he would reveal, MLK and JFK and RFK and all of these things that you hadn't been getting. He's the one that's going to reveal them to you. And everybody's like, I think we've been had, which they have. So my point being, because of what the United States is, and that the president presides over the system, he doesn't control. The word tells you presides. He's the president. He presides over something. He doesn't run it. He presides over it. He's a facilitator of the system, but he doesn't run the system. And because of that, he and the fact that he came in basically arguing as though he ran the system, and now that he's coming in and run the system, he's going to fix it because he's going to make the right decisions rather than I preside over the system. He could have said, I'll do the best I can when I get in, but I'm against some powerful forces. Whether he got elected based on that, I don't know. I can argue that somebody could get elected on telling the truth, but he just went with hey, I'm the guy, I'm the blue collar billionaire, and I'm standing up to everybody, and I'm going to make decisions, and I'm going to change, and God save me so I can make America great again. So fine, sure, he got him elected, but that's kind of what got him screwed now. And now what you've got is this. Interestingly enough, he came in at a time when the U.S. empire is crumbling, and so it's at war with the world. He came in at a time when the U.S. Economic system that was created, an economic infrastructure that was created after World War II is falling apart, mainly because other countries can exist not as debtor nations, but as industrial and commodity-based nations who want a healthy balance between industry and finance and finance capital, and who want to China. They want to have an emphasis on industry. Russia wants to have an emphasis on commodities and secondarily industry, building both. And the United States is nothing but a finance capital nation, and we live off of debt. Because we live off of debt, when we run out of people to put in debt, there ain't no way to make money. And things start to fall apart, and we must expand and go take other countries and steal their stuff. And we can't do that anymore because we don't have the military or economic power to do that anymore. And so Trump is in the unfortunate position of leading an empire that no longer has the economic or military power to support its imperial ambitions. This is the reality. He wants to support these the neocons' imperial ambitions are, we're in charge and everybody has to listen to us. Okay, you can say that. I can walk into a room and say, I'm the man, I'm the alpha male. Everybody's got to listen to me. But one of the guys in the room might step to me and say, dude, I don't think that's true. I'm not listening to you. And now here's what that means, what you're going to do. Now, if they all work for me, I can say, I'll fire you. Okay, so I have the economic ability, or I can say, you better listen to me or I'll fire you. I'm the boss. Okay, that's one way I can demonstrate that I'm the alpha male. I'm the head of this pride, right? Or we can get in a fight. I can say, yeah, well, I'll kick your ass. And a guy can say, well, okay, let's find out. And all the other guys look and say, okay, Garland's going to fight him. And he's the toughest guy in the room. Is Garland going to win the fight? Garland wins the fight, beats the hell out of him. Everybody goes like, hey, Garland, we don't want to fight you. You win. That's like the wolf way. That's the lion way. The alpha male comes in, defeats the current alpha male, takes over the pride, right? Well, the problem is this. Nobody's scared of the U.S. It's obvious to everyone that the U.S. doesn't have the capacity. And it's not just one alpha male. We didn't just fight an alpha male. We fought the Houthis, a cub. We're like, you better do what we're going to say. And one of the cubs said, well, I'm not going to listen to you, Mr. New Lion. And we're like, let me tell you something, you little cub. You better do what we're telling you to do. Houthis are like, no way. I ain't listening. Like, okay, we'll paw you to death. We attacked the cub, and the cub kicked our ass and ran us out of the jungle. And everybody's like, dude, you lost to a cub. What are you talking about? They don't have a navy. You lost a naval engagement to a country that doesn't have a navy. I don't think you should screw with Russia or China. Probably not a good idea. Well, that wasn't good enough. We had to go tangle with Iran. And Iran, yeah, we got a few good shots in. And Iran grabbed us, bit, bop, bat, bip, bam. Slapped us mercilessly around and threw us out. Said, hey, we don't want trouble, but if you come back for some more, you'll get some more. So now what do we do? Now what's Trump do? He's basically he's saber rattling, and now he's got to show we're going to put sanctions. How long? So look, he's going to get a short amount of it. I'm going to put sanctions on Russia and 100% sanctions on China and India. In a way, I almost hope he does. In a way, I almost hope he does. You know what I mean? In a way, like the guy comes in and he's going to take over the room, and the big guy comes and he says, "Oh yeah," and he punches the big guy, and the big guy kicks his ass, and everybody goes, "You probably shouldn't have punched that big guy." But now you got a lesson that you desperately need. You know what? If Trump listens to Lindsey Graham and those guys, but here's the sad part for Trump: if he listens to him and says, "That's it, 100% sanctions on China," and China's going to say, "Dude, we just had a deal, and the deal was whatever percentage we agreed on, and you're going to come back weeks, like we're barely instituting a deal, and within a couple weeks you're going to come back and say 100% tariffs on us after we just got this deal." At some point, China's going to say, "That's it. You're unstable. You're crumbling. You can't be trusted. We're moving on." Brazil's always talking about that. I already talked about that. They're going to say, "Look, we did the best we could. Yes, it's going to hurt us. It's going to be economically painful. Nobody wants to lose 10 to 15% of their, exports. No, we don't want to do that. But we're China. We've been around for 5,000 years. We're going to make it for 5,000 more. We're going to have to bite the bullet. But never mind. It ain't worth it no more." See, I think we're getting to that point where China's going to have to say it just isn't worth it anymore. We make a deal. We'd sit there. We're minding our own business. You come along and say 200% sanctions on us. We sit down and make a deal. We shake hands. We sign off the deal. We go home thinking we have a deal, and you come back with 100% sanctions because we're buying oil that we need from our partner, who, by the way, we have a 1,000-kilometer border with. You can choose your allies. You can choose your partners. As they say, if you ever know anybody that studies international geopolitics, you can choose your partners. You can choose your allies, but you can't choose your neighbors. And we got a 1,000-mile border with them, and we need to do business with them, and they need to do business with us. And you're 7,000 miles away. Get out of our faces. So what happens if China just says, "You know what? You just keep your sanctions. We'll be all right. We're good. Have a nice day." "Oh, we fixed them. We got sanctions on them." And they're like, "What's coming from China?" "Well, nothing really. China's just said, screw it. They're not. They called back their ships, and they're doing minimal business with us." By the way, what are those sanctions on again? On China? That means that when things arrive from China, the buyer has to pay the sanctions. So now I got a company, I'm buying stuff from China, it lands at the port, and I got $40,000 worth of stuff that I bought that I need from China. But now it costs me $80,000. I don't have 100% markup on that. So how am I going to make my money back? I need stuff. What if I need electronics, a computer, a microphone sitting right here, all these other components I need, all of this stuff I got that has made in China stamped all over it? 100%. At that point, that just means you ain't doing business with China. And at some point, if we slap 100% China tariffs on China every other month, every time we get a deal that's another 100%, China's going to say there's no point in doing this dance anymore. Have a nice life. We done the best that we could. We tried. But it just ain't going to work for us. Our economy is weak. Our economy is fragile. See, a lot of people don't understand this. Our economy is fragile. It's like a person who has a weak immune system. If they get sick, they'll get sicker than somebody who has a strong immune system. They'll be quicker to die than somebody that has a strong immune system. So a person who has a weak immune system has to be careful and do the best they can. And they can still live a long life, but they just have to be very, very careful and take care of themselves in ways that maybe somebody else who doesn't, because their immune system is fragile, and for whatever reason, it could be a cancer survivor, any number of things, but they just have to take the proper precautions, right? Our economic immune system is fragile. That one doesn't even begin to cover it. We're on the edge of collapse, on the verge of collapse. It's going to take one thing for 2008 on steroids. For instance, closing the Straits of Hormuz. Look, there are a lot of people saying, well, to distract from the Epstein stuff, Trump may just go ahead and have to attack Iran. And they're going to close the Straits of Hormuz, and the derivatives market's going to collapse along with the rest of our economy, because our economy runs off of magic money and strange financial tools, magical financial tools that most of us don't even understand, and the people that are selling them don't even understand, because they're just magic. They're garbage. They're trash. They don't exist. They're only valuable if somebody wants to buy them, and there's nothing really for them to pay off because they don't really exist. So my point being, Trump is, end up with this. Trump is reacting to the pressure he's getting from the neocons. This has nothing to do with Russia. He's reacting to the pressure that he's getting from Europe. He's reacting to the pressure that he's getting from his base, who are saying, we're sick and tired of this whole Epstein pedophilia crap. And you told us there was going to be no wars. And my God, you're lying about everything. And it certainly appears, bringing Ghislaine Maxwell in, that this is just another game. You're going to bring her in, she's going to talk, and you're going to say, well, good news, we talked about Ghislaine Maxwell, and she told us that Trump ain't on the list, and that the only people on the list are Democrats. And therefore, we've decided, because she's cooperated so wonderfully, we've decided that we're going to let her out. We're going to go ahead and drop everything against her and let her go on about her business, as though she's already in jail. She's probably in it. They're flying her in from Israel, which is also known as federal prison, where she's just probably had dinner with Epstein yesterday. Why did they bring Epstein in? I mean, fair enough, he committed suicide, but I'm sure that ain't going to stop him from talking. So bring Epstein in back from Israel. Bring Ghislaine Maxwell back from Israel. You can put them on the same flight and bring them both before Congress and listen to what they have to say, and then just send them back to Israel. Yes, I'm going to pardon them. I mean, send them back to Israel where they're in their hideouts. But at any rate, I'm very skeptical of everything, so you will forgive me if I don't believe any of this crap. But let's look, and might I add, I guess I'll end up by saying this. And we're looking at a situation where, interestingly enough, and I guess it makes sense, the Trump administration and the U.S. political situation is in a shambles. A shambles. Have you looked at the numbers? Trump's approval rating is dropping like building 7, going down, right? The Democrats, I've seen 15% approval rating, something like that. Let me see. Democrats approval rating polls. Let me see if I see anything at all. Not that I trust these people. Democrats tumble in new poll. New poll shows Democrats with the lowest favorability rating. Maddow blog, new polling suggests Democrats are struggling. I like this, there's a but. But they still lead Republicans. MSNBC host Chris Matthews has stark warning for Democrats. Trump's strength is still greater than the Democratic strength. He's a stronger public figure than the Democrats. It's hard to be a weaker figure. So here's the bottom line. Trump's approval ratings are tumbling, and he's looking like a schmuck. The Democrats, they're so low. I'll put it like this. They're so close to the bottom that if they hit the bottom, it wouldn't make a sound. They need a step ladder. They'd have to climb up to get to 0. The Democrats are just a pathetic joke. They're not even a political party. They're stumbling and bumbling around. Trump, the Republicans are infighting between the neocons and whoever knows else, and they're ruled by the neocons. Trump is lost. He's in the abyss, both the political, military, and at times it seems that he's in the, shall we say, intellectual abyss at times, right? Ukraine's falling apart, crumbling. They've got the cardboard revolution going on. Israel, people around the world are like, am I crazy? Or I'm looking at people, you starve people. And it's pretty obvious that Epstein was an Israeli, U.S., probably MI6, blackmail operation in which you guys were shipping kids around the world. You were trafficking young people for sex, and now Trump is screwed because he's got to hide it. Things ain't looking good for Israel. Israel's coming unglued. It is a war machine, nothing but a war tool now for the U.S. empire. That's all it is. It's a war machine. It's a war tool for the U.S. empire, and it's coming unraveled. The U.S. is coming unraveled, and its two principal proxies, the Europeans and the Ukrainians. The whole kit and caboodle is falling to pieces at the same time. And it's going to be interesting to watch what happens. So let me see. I'm going to go to the top and see if anybody has, we're going to answer the super chats and super stickers and super things. Here's one. Will Trump get pushed into fighting Russia? Okay. As always, the potential is there that the United States empire and or Europeans could stumble into fighting Russia. Trump would be hard pressed to make that decision. I think Donald Trump, if it's Donald Trump's decision, he's going to be hard pressed, because I do think the one thing Donald Trump understands is a war with Russia means Trump dies. And he's a narcissist. Narcissists don't want to die. It means that everything goes. I think he understands that if the U.S. gets in a war with Russia, that it will quickly go nuclear and everyone will die. So I think that Donald Trump was highly reticent to do that. So, but we shall see what happens. Those are things that, we can't control. So here's another one. Did I see another one? Thanos, Snap Feminism says, read Lincoln by Gore Vidal. It's also on Audible. Thank you very much. That sounds good. I've read some great books on Lincoln, some really good books on Lincoln. Interesting, brilliant guy. How about we go with Macarius 39 says, U.S. has resumed spy flights near Crimea this week. Yeah, but none of that shocked me. I mean, this is neocon stuff constantly going on. They're flying back and forth across the the Taiwan Straits. They're sending planes across the Taiwan Straits. They're flying around in the 38th parallel. And they're like, we must a show of strength. No, it's not. It's an attempt to menace people. It's an attempt to demonstrate to other countries that we're the boss. It's an attempt to demonstrate not to the Russians, but to the Europeans. Look at us. We're strong. We can menace and threaten the Russians and they won't do anything about it. So that's it. Let's see. Someone says they were all money laundering. Yeah, that's the U.S. as a money laundering operation. All right. Let me see if I see anything else before we go. Let's see. French PM since EU trade deal. Well, the last I'll say is this. I don't see anything else. Interesting. Now, there's another. Politico is saying, here's one. Politico, the U.S. could cut its troop presence in Europe by up to 30%. Politico reported on Monday the reduction could be announced as early as September. So again, as one group is saying, are the Americans going to go attack Russia? Politico is reporting that they're talking about reducing their troop presence in Europe. Now, the only reason they're doing that, in my opinion, is going to be because they want to send them elsewhere to the Middle East or, whatever, to the next war, China, whatever the case may be. Pete Hegseth urges allies to boost defense spending, warning they cannot assume America's presence in Europe will last forever. So they're taking Europe to the cleaners. Excuse me. The traitors that are the ruling class in Europe is just handing Europe over to the neocons here, saying, look, take all of our money, take everything we got. We don't care about the European people. I mean, if the European people don't start building guillotines, then they almost deserve what they're getting. If you look at what your so-called leaders are doing to you, and you're okay with that, and you don't realize it's time for like a major revolution, I mean, at what point? Like, I'm here in the United States, and I'm like, the U.S. is committing a genocide, war all over the world, gigantic tax breaks for the rich, running up the deficit through the roof. They're continuing, and Americans are like, yes, Trump. No, the Democrats. Trump's bad. No, the Democrats are bad. Americans are deaf, dumb, and blind, apparently. And I say this to the Europeans. It's bad enough for us, but for God's sake, did you see that deal they just signed? They're hanging you out to the dry. They are deindustrializing you. They are screwing you to know not what. Perhaps it's time to take action. Perhaps it's time to take matters in your own hands. I'm just throwing that out there. That's my thought. All right. And last but not least, let's send our prayer and our love out for the, and I say, I'm not a particularly religious man, but I say use the word prayer philosophically. And that is for the people of Gaza, as we see one of the most heinous, unthinkable crimes that mankind could ever commit, as they literally starve the people to death. It's unthinkable what we're seeing. And the US government and the governments in the West who are perpetrating this unthinkable crime should never be forgiven. It should never be forgotten. Not one person in this government deserves to keep their job. Not one of them. In fact, they deserve a Nuremberg style trial, and they deserve a similar fate as to those who were found guilty. I'm not a death penalty guy, but I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? We all got our limits. And when you're starving people to death and you're putting food out for people who are hungry and machine gunning them down, and you're dropping bombs in the middle of tent cities of refugees, you know, I'm just saying, whatever punishment happens to happen to you, I'm not going to be standing outside holding up a flag that says I oppose the death penalty. Let these people go. I ain't going to be the one doing that. That's all I'm saying. So thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day. Last but not least, I'll say this. Follow me on Telegram and Rumble and all that kind of stuff. If you can afford it, Patreon, buy me a coffee, Cash App, something like that. I would certainly appreciate it. If you can afford to help the channel, that's great. There's my P.O. box right there, P.O. Box 32. People say, where's your P.O. box? It's right there. It's scrolling across the bottom. If you want to send a letter, if you want to send a donation, if you want to send a patch. Look at this. A guy sent me a patch. He retired. Check this out. I'm proud of my patch. A guy retired from the Department of Corrections for Connecticut, and he sent me a patch. So if you want to send me, isn't that great? People send me great things. So if you want to send me something, thanks a lot. Certainly appreciate it. Have a great day. I'm out.